Happy Friday, everybody. Thanks for joining me on my Friday Facebook Live. And today we have a special guest. We have Dan Dalton with Scratch and Peck Chicken Feed. Well, I guess you guys do way more than just chicken feed. But of course, what we carry here at All Pets Considered is your chicken line. And we had a lot of our customers, specifically a really good friend of mine, who were starting to acquire backyard chickens. And we're looking for quality chicken feed because my friend Rita happens to go to Costco every week and get a container of green grapes
Oh
to
yeah, that's
during
right.
the week and feed to her chickens. So her chickens are what we call very spoiled, and
Yes.
she
Yes.
is feeding Scratch and Peck. And she loves that when she goes outside and shakes the bag of grubs, they all come running. But as we've gone through this journey and added Scratch and Peck to our lineup here at the store, I've learned so much about chickens. So I'm excited to kind of bring that knowledge to everybody who might be watching, who shops with us already and has backyard chickens. So tell us a little bit about how and why Scratch and Peck got started.
Sure. Man, it's been a journey now. It's so cool to have seen it and where we're going still, but it started really with the need of finding some good quality chicken feed. And our founder Diana, she at age 50 started this in a cement mixer in her backyard because she couldn't find anything back then. Um, this was in 2010. And so more and more people found out about this. They were like, hey, this is kind of cool. You can see the grains, you can see the seeds. I think my chickens really like this. And we purchased a mill in Bellingham, outgrew that, and then we're now in Burlington, Washington, in the heart of Skagit Valley. And we make over 1 million pounds of animal feed a month at that location.
Gracious, that's a lot.
And it's all the best quality stuff around. So before we kind of reverse to talk more about quality, because nutrition is the most important thing and what people are looking for, I wanted to just kind of finish the story because I'm really excited. We have another mill now in Nebraska, in South Sioux City, Nebraska, and I got word that the first pallet of feed just came out of it.
Oh, wow,
And so,
how exciting.
oh my goodness. So we kind of have a little bit of a grand opening in June, but long story short, we're making it more local even than for y'all in Greensboro, because I know that it's important to try to support kind of those local communities. And on that note, all of our grains, 100% of them are North American grown. We don't do any commodity sourcing for grains. And we really pride ourselves in trying to bring the best quality product available. So if you ever get a chance to look at the product in the store, go visit Allison, go check it out. It tells you on the bag, it shows you we're organic, we're non-GMO, we're an animal welfare approved company, and we're certified B Corp. And not that labels are everything, but it shows you right up front that, hey, this is the best of the best. This is the good quality stuff. Because as you mentioned, most of these chickens, they're friends too, right? They've got names. People love them. They're feeding them treats. They're shaking bags of grubs, right?
Yeah.
It's the only pet that poops breakfast for you. There.
Yeah, just yesterday morning I was walking with Rita and Featherfoot was out in the backyard screaming, and I thought she needed me. So they have names, they have personalities, and
let's take a quick, I think we should take a quick tangent to applaud people that have backyard chickens. I'm serious, because so many of them in America, it's a different sort of situation for those individuals. And when you're directly connected to your food system, your food source, your food chain, it makes you feel good. The animals feel good. That's the whole animal welfare component. I mean, seriously, happy animals are typically less sick. They typically give you better product, and this is really important. So
yeah, no, for sure. And I honestly say you are what you eat. Our pets are what they eat, just as much as we are what we eat, and our chickens are what they eat. And so if they don't have a healthy diet and they don't have a healthy atmosphere, they're not healthy animals.
And so we even say at Scratch Peck, you are what your animals eat.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what drives us, because as you mentioned, and if those of you out there on Facebook or wherever are watching and check out Allison and you have other critters like a goat or maybe a mini pig or whatever, we provide solutions that are that best nutrition possible, because these are our friends as well. Animal welfare is dogs, cats, this is extremely important. So that kind of ties into the nutrition a little bit. So we kind of call it the golden standard when you have USDA organic and non-GMO project verified. They're slightly different, and I'm happy to go into any detail or minutia. I don't know if you see questions coming up or people have questions, but
not yet. But if people start asking questions, I'll certainly stop and relay those to you as they come along. Tell us a little bit about the difference between those two certifications.
That's a great question, because they are similar, but so the USDA organic certification happens at the farm level, and it is a government sort of run situation where they certify that farm is not using banned pesticides, herbicides, etc. They're using organic farming practices. Mm-hmm. Now, kind of inherent in organic is the whole that they can't use GMO seeds. So that's wrapped up in there. But non-GMO project is a third party. They're completely separate. And what they do is they verify that those seeds, wherever they come from, whether it's an organic farm or not, that they are non-GMO. And that's important, because a lot of people are maybe trying to avoid putting that stuff in their body. Like corn and soy are the top two. And we're really talking about 12 crops here. And again, we're not vilifying anything. We just want to provide some options, because a lot of stuff does use GMOs. And we want to use things that are kind of more natural, more pure, what maybe your grandfather would have put in the ground back in the day. So having that double check means that we can verify that. And then when your animal eats that, maybe you're even a small scale farmer. Maybe you want to sell the eggs, right? Now you have organic eggs. That's an upsell. It's kind of a cool thing, because I can, at least from my experience, when you eat good food and you feel good, that's a really empowering feeling. And you got to imagine that happens for the critters too. They know what's good for them. They know what tastes good. They know what excellent nutrition is.
Yeah, so let's run through the line. I know you have other feeds, and we'll kind of quickly go through that after we go through the chicken products that we carry. So run through the products that Scratch Peck offers for chickens.
Definitely. So chickens are a little bit unique compared to our dog and cat friends, because they have different stages of life. You really have to adjust the feed appropriately too. And we'll talk about a supplement that all chickens need also, that is different from maybe what folks are used to. So firstly, let's pretend you're raising from a baby chick. You hatched your chicks. I did that this year. It's incredible. But you got a baby chick, right? So they're going to need starter. We call it just starter because that's where they're beginning their life. Now, we have different format options. We have a crumble, which is really easy. Every bite's the same. And we have what's called a mash. And a mash, you could think of the mash as the raw food for chicken feed.
Okay.
That's exactly how I think of it, because it's just a bunch of different grains that are raw, that are mixed with vitamins and supplements, mashed together, done and done. It's a complete diet. You can dump it out dry, but you can also ferment it. And we'll come back to that, I promise. But I'm seed. So for a baby chick, you need starter. That's 0 to 8 weeks of age, roughly. That's what we consider a chick. And at that point, even when they're babies, you want to get them starter grit. And grit is just stone, exactly like what it sounds like. But it's really important that they get it, because chickens don't have teeth.
This was really fascinating to me. I knew chicken didn't have teeth. That I knew.
Well, I mean,
I had no idea about this.
So check this out. I kind of lied to you, because chickens actually they have one tooth. All birds do. They have an egg tooth, and they use it to chip out of the egg. And then literally in 48 hours, it falls off, because they're growing so quick. Yeah. So otherwise, they don't have teeth. And if they're not getting that grit, it's like eating without teeth. So maybe you're like, if you're a birder, if you're watching your finches out in the morning, or cardinals, or you'll see them eat little pebbles and rocks, and they're like, what is going on there? Birds need that because they store it in their gizzard, and that's their kind of equivalent to our mouth, if you will, because it grinds physically the food. And so if they're not getting that, again, it's hard for them to get anything in their body. So the grit is size appropriate. So now we're, let's say, 8 to 20 weeks. This is the teenager phase of a chicken's life. There are special words if you want to sound like a cool chicken person, because the ladies, the hens, are called pullets. And then the dudes, the roosters, are called cockerels. But they're teenagers at this point, and so you move them to a grower feed. They're still growing, but you would go to either a grower crumble or a grower mash, the whole sort of situation. And then you also need the grower grit, because if you keep feeding them that chick grit, it'll just go straight through their system, and their gizzard is getting bigger too. So it won't be able to trap that tiny grit anymore. It'll just go straight through. So bigger grit, bigger gizzard, healthier bird typically. And then 20 weeks of age. For most breeds, that's when they'll start laying eggs. And we call those then layers. So you have hens and roosters. And at that point, you're going to want to transition to a layer. And it says on the bag, very straightforward, layer. And that's what they'll be eating pretty much the rest of their life. And you have the option from the crumble, a pellet, and a mash when they're at that layer level.
Okay.
And so it's really just choices there. So I want to kind of go briefly over that. Like, what's the difference between the three? Why do we have so many things going on? Oh, and there's a layer grit. I'm sorry, I forgot. There's a layer grit, right? So
yeah, much larger grit.
Yeah, and they're not going to choke on it. They need it to be big like that. So the formats are really just to provide options. I wouldn't say one is necessarily better or worse than the other, but I personally like to use the pellets when I'm out and about, because I can dump them into like a gravity feeder or into a treadle. That's one of those things where they step on it and it opens up, and then they step off and it closes. But when I'm around, I love the mash because I'm a diehard fermenter. And if you ferment, that is the most nutritious method, and you will save money. Yeah. So that's a really big thing. So if you don't have time, it's no worries. What's nice is the pellets and crumbles, every bite is exactly the same. I will warn people, if you use the mash dry, if you don't ferment it, your picky peckers will take out their favorite seeds and leave the vitamins and supplements. I promise you. It's like with kids, right? If you had a bowl of candy and vegetables, I guarantee you that
candy will be gone, vegetables will remain, right?
So for the mash, I think that you should ferment the mash. If you don't want to do that, it's no problem. You can feed it dry, but you should do the pellets at that point, because it'll be a lot better for your flock. So choices. It's nice to have choices. Yeah. I don't know. Everybody's got a different backyard coop. They have different sized birds. So it's just nice to have options that are all the same quality.
And the fermenting that you mentioned, we have instructions at our store, both store locations. We have the instructions printed and
awesome.
Laminated, but we also are happy to email those to any customers that may want a copy of the fermenting instructions. It's not a hard gig for sure.
No, it's not.
It requires some glass jars and water and time, but not much time.
Yeah, it's pretty simple and straightforward. So I encourage people to try it if they haven't, because your birds will thank you for sure. And as I mentioned, if you ferment, you'll use 30 to 40% less. So you get 30 to 40% more out of every bag. Mm-hmm. And that's because it's more nutrient dense. It's not that it's like expanding in size or volume, which it does a little bit, but it's more that it's so bioavailable that they get satiated quicker, and then you don't need as much. So
yeah, I feed my dogs a fermented raw dog food, and same concept. They don't have to eat nearly as much, and same concept.
Yeah, same with people, right? Sauerkraut or kimchi versus cabbage. I mean, there's lots of benefits to fermenting feed. And right, the chickens don't have teeth, as we've talked about before. So offering them something that's pre-digested is a really big win. You know, it's a really good thing for them.
Now, talk to me a little bit about the supplement options that you guys have. Some of you guys have some really cool additional add-on things that are great for chickens too.
That's a great question. And we talked a little bit about grit already. I would really encourage flock keepers, chicken tenders, whatever you want to call them, to have some extra in your coop or ready to go if you run out, because grit is something that they'll eat open source, sort of. You want to set it in a dish and they'll eat it if they need it. If they don't, that's fine. Same with oyster shell. That's the same way that you would present oyster shell. And for laying hens, oyster shell can be really, really crucial because it's an extra source of calcium for them. Now, every single serving of our feed has the appropriate amount of calcium in it. But if a chicken needs more calcium and she can't get it, she'll take it out of her bones.
Yeah, I find that fascinating too. Nature's way, right?
Oh, yeah. They're called medullary bones in birds, and they're not all of them, but some of them. And over time, it can be really detrimental to the bird to the point where they can even get sick enough where they perish. So it's important that they get that extra calcium. And so they seem to really like the oyster shell because it's thin, it's flaky. And when they're eating the oyster shell, that is a calcium supplement for them. So that's to help with the eggshells. And that's not to provide like grinding or any sort of digestive aid. So grit and oyster shell are different. Now, we do also have a limestone option, which is a calcium supplement. It's just a different format. I think most people prefer the oyster shell, and I would recommend that. But again, choices. So we have the grit, the oyster shell, or the calcium, and then the herbs. Have you seen?
Yeah, these are really cool.
Oh, man. And these are bougie chickens. I'm not going to lie. I mean, so if you can grow your own herbs, great. You should. It's fun to have a garden. But if not, it's nice to have these dried ones ready to go. So I personally sprinkle it on the fermented feed, and it sticks really well. It's like a natural daily vitamin. Again, we're relying on phytochemicals. If you read the ingredients on it, it's got like oregano, garlic, calendula, thyme. And a lot of those are high in natural antiseptics or antimicrobials. Like if a person gets sick, maybe you will lean on garlic or concentrated oregano oil for a little additional phytochemical help. So it's kind of like a daily vitamin. In the summer, when it gets hot, because I know that happens very quickly.
Yeah.
Put it in a tea bag or cheesecloth, and you close it up. You can put it in the waterer, and it gives them like a tincture. It gives them a little extra that way. I even like to throw it in an ice cube tray and freeze it. You could even use fat or tallow or something like that, and it can be a boredom buster or a brain break for them. So the herbs are a really cool add-on that you can use in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the calendula in the herbs will help give your yolks a really dark yellow color. That's what gives egg yolks that yellow, is the carotenoids. And calendula, it's in the marigold family. It has a lot of those.
That's great.
And then the grubs. You mentioned the grubs.
Yeah.
And the grubs are like chicken crack. They're like the best. I don't even know. They
are that. Rita would attest. They are that. They are chicken crack for her chicken. She loves that. She'll just shake the little bag and they just come running.
Yeah, they know it. They're high in protein. They have some good fat to them, and they're especially handy when the chickens lose feathers. So what happens after the first year of a chicken's life? It'll molt once a year for the rest of its life. And when they're when they're regrowing feathers, giving them extra protein is really helpful because feathers are made almost exclusively of keratin. And so the grubs are 40% protein.
Okay.
And that's a really good, useful supplement. You can definitely go too far if you're giving them too many grubs like all the time, and they will pester you. So we say 10%, no more than 10% of their diet should be treats. But yeah.
That's what we say about dogs too. So I do understand. I can relate. I can relate. Probably my diet shouldn't be as rich in treats as it is either.
You know, you only live once. Same with these little feathered friends.
Yeah. Well, are there any special handling tips or any tips or tricks that you recommend for chickens?
I think you hit one right there. Is handling them is important. I think people, maybe they don't handle them as often sometimes as they should. And when it comes to poultry health, one of the biggest indicators of health is their vent. And so being able to check on their vent is really important. It can tell you a ton about the bird, whether or not they're laying eggs. A lot of times that's an area where there may be mites or other parasites that you would identify, because typically chickens, they don't show any weaknesses. They're really hardy. They're really hardy creatures. And so if you notice something's happening, it may be already so far down the course that it could be hard to help that animal. So handling them is important. You get an idea of how much they weigh, again, all that sort of stuff, because the feathers hide a lot of things. But other than that, I just think it's important to provide them with some sort of mental stimulation. I have found that all the birds that I have that have been able to get, like, I'll hang a cabbage, just stick a stick through it and hang it, or they even make like little xylophones for chickens, stuff like that. It sounds goofy, but that sort of mental outlet, especially if they can't free range, is really important for them. So I would say that that's a tip or a trick. Another like game-changing move, if you don't have chickens or you're getting chickens or you do, is you should invest in an automatic coop door opener. It is just worth it is worth. It's incredible. Many of them, and almost all of them now, you can set to with a light sensor, so that you can alter it when you want it to open and close, but not. I'm an early person. I get up early, but not having to get up every single day to open and close that door. That is really, really tough. It was a game changer.
That is a cool idea.
And as far as equipment goes, I think we mentioned it briefly earlier, but a treadle is a type of a feeder that you can put a fair amount of feed in, but the mice and rats and squirrels can't get at it. That's huge for me.
Yeah.
The gravity feeders, I mean, it doesn't matter what you put in them. A lot of times those critters will get in there, and a lot of times the chickens will knock that feed on the ground. So I like to invest in a treadle as well, because they have to stand on it for the lid to open. It doesn't allow them to knock it out. And then when they're off of it, no squirrels or other rodents are getting. You're spending good money on good feed for your chickens, not for, no offense to white, you know?
Yeah.
The squirrels aren't giving me anything to eat. Anyway, so those are really helpful tricks. I'm trying to think of anything else. You learn something new all the time. I've had chickens in the States for 12 years now, and I grew up with chickens in Germany for the first 10 years of my life, and still every day I learn something new. So I guess
I'm fascinated by all there is to learn about chickens. Like when Rita got chickens last year, it was like, oh, chickens are chickens. But then, learning about their need for grit and learning about their need for calcium and, learning about all of their nutritional needs, and kind of who we are here at All Pets Considered is wanting to sell the best of the best. We want to sell products that are going to make your animals, be them chickens or otherwise, wanting to make them the best of the best. So that's why we were so glad to find you guys. And Rita has fed Scratch and Peck exclusively since she got her chickens.
Awesome.
And they have done very well on that. And of course, her side dishes of fruits and vegetables that she loves to do. But tell us a little bit about some of the other things that Scratch and Peck does offer. We don't sell them here in the store, but we can always special order them for our customers. So I would love for them to know the lineup in case they're interested.
Definitely. And I would encourage folks to check out our website if they get a chance. We just updated it, and it has a new learning center, so you can kind of explore the different formats that we have, the different feeds, or just visit Allison because you're awesome. I'd say one of our more popular feeds is our goat feed. A lot of people that have chickens are now starting to think about, if they have a little bit more space, what other critter they may add. So the goat feed is nice. It's not a complete diet because that's a forage animal as well. So this is also something more as a supplement or when it's colder or in addition to a forage diet. And then some people are getting into sheep as well, and we do offer a sheep diet. And it is really important to note that a sheep and a goat feed are not interchangeable. One is toxic for the other, and it really has to do with the copper. So again, we have really the best nutritionists, the best ingredients and formula, and we do all the due diligence to make sure it's appropriate for those animals. Before we talk about another critter, though, I want to remind everybody that that whole line of chicken feed we talked about is also good for waterfowl, for ducks and geese. So you don't have to get a different feed if you decide, oh, I'm going to add a duck or two, or I have a goose, because a lot of individuals think about that as well. And our feed has enough niacin in it that it'll allow those waterfowl to lay delicious eggs that are healthy as well. So we do that, but then we do offer a turkey grower for people that are either raising turkeys for consuming, or if they have a turkey for a pet in their mixed flock. So that's a little bit differently formulated. And then we have for our porcine friends. So mini pig specifically, what's nice is it's a lot lower sugar, because a lot of mini pigs are getting super sugary diets and getting really big. So mini pig, our friend. And then we also have a pig grower, which I can tell you is some of the most delicious product you'll ever get if you have a pig that's raised on the fermented Scratch and Peck grower. So that's some good stuff. That's then also a different journey. So that would be for an animal that you would harvest down the line.
Okay.
And then we do have a poultry, a broiler, which would be for a poultry that you would consume. And some people choose to include poultry in their lives that way as well. So we provide options for small farms as well as backyards. And all of those that I mentioned are all organic, all non-GMO, project verified. So
very cool.
Yeah.
My friend Rita, who got me into this whole journey of carrying backyard chicken products, her niece is what we call a crazy yard bird lady, and she has lots of yard birds. She has all kinds of chickens. She has turkeys, and
yes,
they completely free range.
Yes,
yeah, they completely free range, and they're all over the place. And I saw she has kind of some social media for her little homestead that she has, and she went and got 6 more babies. I went to go get up some more feed and got 6 more babies. So yeah, we laugh about her being the yard bird lady. Seems kind of addictive for those individuals who get into it. They just can't seem.
It can be, yeah. It can be one of those got to catch them all sort of situations. But I think that if you can find a good balance, it's so nice if you have just a few of them and you can find the rhythm. Because one of the big upsides to chickens that we haven't talked about is that they're great at cleaning up any sort of food scraps. Truth be told, in America in 1950 and before, the average flock size was 50 birds or less.
Wow.
And most people kept them for pest control and for getting rid of food waste. Eggs were kind of just a benefit. And so I have to say, I do feel quite proud of myself. I'm getting on my horse, getting on my soapbox, because no matter how full I am, like, oh, I'm not going to throw this food away. It's going to go to the chickens. It's going to turn into eggs. So that's another really good hack for individuals. If you don't compost and you have food waste, chickens are a really easy way to turn that cycle it even, because you're getting something better in return. But
sure, yeah, no, I mean, Rita's eggs, when she brings the eggs over, she supplies all of us with household eggs, and they're awesome. And so thankful to have that in exchange for pet feed. Well, great. Well, are there any parting words you'd have about Scratch and Peck that you'd love for our followers to know?
I just would encourage people to ask questions and don't be afraid to empower yourself and take control of your food system through adding some chickens. They're great for small families. They're great for larger estates. They're just really, they plug in real easily. And if you have dogs and cats, which 80% of people that have chickens do, they're going to be easier to keep than those animals.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say they're pretty easy.
To not try it, I think it's excellent. So check out all of the cool products. at All Pets Considered. I know that Allison is a wealth of knowledge because you're plugged into the chicken lady community now, whether you like it or not. And you can always reach out to Scratch and Peck. We love answering questions. We want to be here to provide support. So
sounds great. Well, thank you for joining us today, Dan, and enlightening all of us on more information about chickens. I'm absolutely fascinated by chickens. Of course, every time I start down this path and start learning more about chickens, I learn something different. So the tooth is a new one. The tooth that falls off after 48 hours is my new tidbit of information today that I did not know before. But we welcome all of you that if you don't have any questions, but if you have questions after watching this and we've already gone off the live, feel free to post them in the comments and I can answer, or I can tag Dan and have them answer. If it's something I can't answer, we're always happy to get more information for you. But we appreciate you joining us and thank you so much. And we look forward to maybe doing another live sometime down the road.
I was going to say it was a pleasure chatting chicken with y'all today, and I would love to do this again in the fall because I've got tips for everybody when it gets colder again. Perfect. But this was
we
perfect.
Can definitely do that.
Have a wonderful evening.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.